to teach Chapter 3, Part 2. In one small environmental choice, the choice to display student work, I am expressing larger purposes and more overarching values. I am encouraging students to control and shape a part of their lives. I am creating a larger audience for their efforts. I am attempting to reduce the distinction between school knowledge and personal knowledge, and I am bringing their initiatives and their personhood into sharper focus. In this choice, I'm enacting locally a range of things I believe in globally. As a teacher, I've tried to create learning environments that suit my own larger purposes and core values. I assumed, for example, that children will learn important things without a lot of well meaning intervention. Babies will babble and eventually speak words and then sentences. They will scoot and crawl and then walk. Adults can provide safe places for them to explore and practice. We can support their efforts, sometimes crawling alongside, often babbling back or interpreting their babble and responding appropriately, and always delighting in their accomplishments. While practically all children make these giant leaps and discoveries, we treat each one as important in its own right, unique and amazing. We don't say, sure, sure, everyone can walk and talk. I've seen it all before, big deal. We don't bring in learning specialists to develop a curriculum unit, behavioral objectives, a scope and sequence chart, and a bunch of lesson plans, although there is amazingly pressure in this direction. In short, we don't do to learning to walk or to talk that we have already done to learning to read. We don't, yeah. And if we ever do, we will likely create as many non speakers as we have non readers. When each of our children learned to walk, talk, swim, ride a bike, read, or add, it was the one and only first time he would ever learn those things. The event called for our honor and our awe, and that awe was easy for us because we knew that the learning, the effort, and the accomplishment were theirs. We had avoided knowing that it would be irrelevant lectures on principles of gyroscopes or the biology of fish. We supported and pushed, held on and let go, practiced swimming until we were waterlogged or bicycling until our backs ached. We provided the environment for learning and the invitation to learn, but it was their choice, their action, and their courage that resulted in the thing learned. All real learning requires activity on some level. When our son Malik began to speak, his first word was ball. He loved running across the kitchen floor, chasing tennis balls or ping pong balls or marbles, ball, ball, ball. When he was 3, he began to hit a wiffle ball outside with a little plastic bat. In the city, he would play wall ball for hours on end. When we visited the country, he would stand in the yard, self-pitching, and whack the ball over the house. He let out a whoop and whenever he roofed it. Malik was completely satisfied to play ball with friends or brothers when that could be arranged, or all by himself if that was necessary. There was something inherent in playing ball that held him. As he grew and his skills developed, he learned more and more about baseball. He began to collect baseball cards and soon had a world-class collection that he would sort and resort in seemingly endless new organizational schemes. He memorized batting averages and he learned the lore and mythology of the game. He listened to games on the radio, went to the field when possible, and could recount heroic moments he longed to play. When he was in preschool, he asked Jose Vega, an assistant teacher, to play ball with him. Jose pitched a couple of balls and Malik roofed each one. Impressed, Jose began to pitch to Malik every day, and they've developed a deep, satisfying friendship that centered around the game and continued for several years. When Malik was finally old enough to play in an organized league, his reputation was found to match his skills. The scouting report noted good speed, coordination, power to all fields. Serious. The point of all of this is that learning requires a set in action. Learning requires practice, correction, self-correction. Learning is sometimes hard work. But if that work ties in with a sense of purpose, it can be deeply satisfying. I reject the idea that learning is passive, that the teacher is the one who knows and the students the ones who don't know. My classroom then never looks like a mini lecture hall with an imposing teacher's desk in the front and rows of students facing forward in my room. I use the same desk, a table really, that students use, and the teacher's desk, a hefty oak job, is pushed to one corner where it serves as a storage area and workspace. I want to build spaces that are laboratories for discovery and surprise. In an early childhood classroom of mine, this meant having a large open area for block building and an ample set of wooden unit blocks. The block area was surrounded by materials that suggested dramatic play with blocks, people, animals, and signs. The block shelves were adorned with magazine pictures of skyscrapers, shanty towns, and row houses, and the walls were covered with photographs of block projects from years gone by. In this classroom, I made several easels, and there were canisters of red, yellow, and blue paint available. Paper was stacked nearby so that children could take a piece and snap it easily into place. There was a convenient drying rack, and children's paintings hung around the painting area. Some educators would say that black blocks and painting are for preschoolers, that they are fine for play, but that by kindergarten or first grade, they must make way for real work, meaning some form of skill and drill. Perhaps those teachers have never explored the materials adequately enough to understand the potential and power in paint and blocks, or have never seen the astonishment on the face of a 6-year-old who invents the wheel for his truck, a 7-year-old who figures out how to get cars up on her massive two-tiered bridge, or an 8-year-old who creates Central Park and essentially retraces the landscape's architect's dilemmas regarding multiple and contradictory use. Perhaps they have never witnessed the discovery of purple, a discovery that is as common as mud when children play at the easel in this type of environment, and yet dazzling in its particulars every time. Eleanor Duckworth, a dazzling teacher and an intrepid investigator of children's learning, argues that the essence of cognitive development at any age is the having of a wonderful idea. She has in mind the importance of discovery and surprise in all intellectual work. For Duckworth, the discovery of purple is not trivial but profound. It provides the basis in an amazing and memorable encounter for constructing deep knowledge about primary and secondary colors. Along with the color purple, come confidence, self-esteem, curiosity, and a sense that knowledge is open-ended and that knowing is active. The learner feels strengthened, energized, powerful in the world, and the lesson is deeply embedded in his or her consciousness. It is more efficient, perhaps, to teach primary and secondary colors using a worksheet and a sequence of lessons delivered by the teacher. The problem is that the collateral lessons in this more anemic approach include a sense that knowledge is finite and knowing passive, that teachers know and students don't know, that somehow the important stuff will all be brought to you in order and on time. Absolutely disastrous lessons if curious and critical disposition of mind is a goal. In the classrooms for older children, blocks give way to other materials and activity, but the challenge remains the same: to create laboratories for discovery and surprise, spaces where children can be active and experimental in following their own compelling goals, places where current knowledge opens into future knowledge. Children in all classrooms need a project to pursue during some part of each day. Projects can integrate and give meaning to other aspects of school and the curriculum. Projects can engage and focus children's energy. Projects can be phenomenally economical, doing double duty, triple duty, quadruple duty in fulfilling linear mandates and impoverished guidelines. In a classroom for 10-year-olds where block building was a recent memory, I worked with children to build a space station out of Legos and later a city out of balsa wood and glue. And when the problem of bridging a highway and then a river presented itself, I issued a challenge. Using toothpicks, glue, and twine, small groups were to construct the strongest possible bridges of given height. This boat must fit under the bridge and establish space, and the bridge has to connect the street to that shore. Once the bridges were designed and built, and the process recorded in diagrams, written descriptions, and on film, the bridges were tested for maximum strength by adding small weights to them until each collapsed. Along the way, there was a lot of hypothesizing, predicting, observing, drafting, speculating, hilarity, and open-ended discussion. There were journeys to nearby bridges and bridge photographs clipped from newspapers and magazines, trips to library, research sketches, safety and bridge repairs, suspension bridges and trestles and viaducts. We read about the history of bridges, viewed bridges in art, read about bridges in the Three Billy Goats Gruff, the bridge over the River Kwai, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and more. Artfully done, bridges, like most anything, can open up the whole world. and they can never be completely finished. I suggested a culminating project. Let's build a bridge we can actually walk across from the chessboards to the computer area, constructed with 2x4s only by twos, nails, and clothesline. But I never suggested that we had covered bridges, no such thing. If you keep going, you can get a PhD in bridges, bridge design, bridge engineering, bridge history. In a classroom for 12-year-olds, we were challenged one winter morning by the sighting of a snowy owl nesting near a Chicago steel plant far south of what would imagine its territory to be an inappropriate urban space for such a mythic creature. Its territory, a project emerged. We wanted to figure out where it came from and how it got there and how it was living. We searched for owl pellets, yuck, interviewed naturalists, wow, and headed back to the library. We put out a simple newsletter for the school called the Snowy Owl Investigator. We pulled out a sextant and stars chart to pursue navigation, and we mapped all of North America in search of its path here and its way home. In all of this, the goal was to make the classroom environment a learning laboratory, an active workshop for discovery. I wanted to challenge youngsters to pursue their work, their interests, their knowledge, and I wanted to demonstrate to them that they were capable and potentially strong in that pursuit. That knowledge was available to them and was not some fixed entity locked up in textbooks, and that learning can be exciting, potentially awesome, and deeply satisfying. I also wanted them to read, write, figure, and so on, but my larger purpose demanded that I teach reading. For example, in the service of discovery and becoming powerful, that I resist reducing mathematics to a purely technical skill, reading math, science, geography, and history. All of these were attended to seriously, but always in light of larger goals and purposes. I want to build spaces where each person is visible to me and to everyone else, where students are known and understood, where they feel safe and valued. I want the context of students' lives to provide a lot of the raw material for learning, and I want there to be an easy flow between their worlds, an interactive, porous, integrated, and relational environment for living and learning. In other words, I want their home and community lives to impact the classroom in positive and apparent ways, and I want the classroom to influence their larger arenas of living as well. I want every youngster to have a respected private space in the room, and I want everyone to find something familiar as well as something interestingly strange there. In my space, there must be a wide range of ways to succeed, multiple interests to pursue, a variety of possible contributions to make. This means the room is decentralized and characterized by lively workstations or interest areas, rather than by straight rows. In an early childhood classroom of mine, there were a block area, an art space, sand and water table, a library, a reading corner, shelves for manipulative materials like rods and cubes, and a dress-up or dramatic play area. Remember, in a middle years classroom, the space shifts somewhat. The block area gives way to a woodworking space, the sand table to a diorama in construction. Gotta love the dioramas. The math manipulatives to more sophisticated puzzles and board games, and the dress-up corner to a fantasy adventure area. In an adolescent classroom, there are other changes, a game center featuring chess, Go, and backgammon, a mapping space with cartographers' tools and surveying equipment, an architectural center, and a photography lab. Every area, of course, serves multiple purposes. The early childhood dress-up area allows children to experience, talk through, and recreate and play important issues in their lives, but it also can be a place that is rich in written language and beginning math concepts. Teachers thoughtfully label parts of the area and props, pizza boxes and pizza rounds cut into 8 pieces, stethoscopes, elastic bandages are available that suggest counting, organization, correspondence, and interrelation. Similarly, the photography lab is related to visual arts, but it is also intentionally involves chemistry, physics, math, and reading. The point here is to broaden the range of skills, interests, talents, and intelligence that are stimulated and developed in the space, rather than narrowing to the most meager, easiest to test strand of cognition and calling that intelligence. I want my space to say intelligence is broad, open, and sparkling. Whatever intelligence you can find a home in as well as a challenge here. My space has lots of books, lots and lots and lots of books. I want students to read a wide range of material for a variety of purposes, for information, entertainment, adventure, knowledge, fun, wisdom, perspective, and growth. I want them to see themselves in books and to see as well worlds that are dazzling in their diversity. I want them to find a wide range of people acting intelligently and compassionately, solving problems, overcoming obstacles, and helping one another. I have always had a research area where students can find dictionaries, encyclopedias, almanacs, atlases, a wonderful eclectic collection of weird and classic reference books, Birds of Africa, Folk Songs of the Catskills, Gray's Anatomy, The Complete Book of Canning, A Fisherman's Guide to Fly Tying, and so on. This accounts for a common refrain heard in my space. Look it up. I've always had a closet bursting with stuff we might need in order to extend or support our work. Cloth, needles, thread, all manner of found and scrounged materials, buttons, bits of plastic, rubber tubing, magazines, newspapers, cameras, tape recorders, computer, paper, yarn, wood, clay, cardboard, and more. I have a computer, a small potter's wheel, a little loom, and a silk screen frame. Not everything is in use all the time, of course, but day to day, year to year, nothing is thrown away either. Another common refrain, let's see if we can find something in the closet for that. I would love to know this man personally. My space has always had plants to care for, big hardy survivors as well as little seedlings we are coaxing to life, and animals to look after, fish, gerbil, turtles, a rabbit. Plants and animals can help to set a caring and responsible tone in a classroom. They can also provoke thought and questions that lead to a careful observation and record keeping. They can lead a class in 100 different useful directions if they are an integral part of the learning environment. In my classrooms, preschool through high school, something is often cooking. Cooking is a class job, a responsibility, and so 4 or 5 people cook every day. In the beginning, we were cooking without heat, cool cooking. There were a lot of fruit salads, peanut butter, Play-Doh, coconut balls, and celery boats. Later, I learned how to make an oven using a cardboard box with a tight-fitting tin foil, wire hangers, light bulbs, and sockets. Making the oven was interesting in its own right. It took days and days, and our oven successfully baked granolas. I just think that this would be a lot of trouble in most school districts that I know. And our oven successfully baked granola pies and quick-baked breads. When I got a hot plate, a toaster oven, and then a microwave, we cooked to make money for special projects, and we baked to celebrate special events. We became world class. I didn't want any kid graduating from my class who couldn't bake a cake, a pie, and a loaf of bread, or who could make one dish, such as roti, tortillas, pasta puttanesca, pizza, and firm tofu. Cooking is engaging for lots of children, and it is in an area which they bring their own knowledge and skill, and as well as deepen and develop their understanding. When a teacher carefully creates the time and space to cook, she can thoughtfully build in reading, math, science, history, culture, mapping, and more. I do believe that. I also think you don't want to do some of this stuff in a classroom unless you have it approved correctly, right? Bringing together several of my core beliefs about learning and the purposes of schooling will help me shape an even more appropriate classroom environment. For example, I'm actually going to stop here because we're at 18 minutes for this video. We're almost done. Okay.